57 of Listen Humanity. The discreet withdrawal of the photographers had no effect on the increasing frown which Baba wore. Finally, he turned to the ready Erich with an urgent message. Erich hastily passed the information on to key workers, and with faultless timing, the proceedings were halted and transferred to the great tent at the side of the meeting hall. As Baba walked the scant half block to the new scene of activity, he held his sopping wet pants high above his knees, looking for all the world like a Chinese laundryman become somewhat too intimately involved in his wash. There was a look of almost shyness on his features as he walked through the milling crowd of admiring followers, caught in almost too mundane a situation, even for one who stretched from heaven to earth. The final several score of paired feet, of dusty feet, of tired feet, of gnarled feet, of thin feet, of festered feet, of smooth young feet, were washed with dispatch. At the last, there were almost no bystanders, only the fleet motions of the tin cup as it sloshed, the swiping aside of excess water, the helping of tired eyes and unsure legs in their descent from the low platform. Baba and the Mandali worked steadily on until the washing of the feet of the poor and the bowing down was done. Is Don ready now for the television film? Where does he want it to be photographed? How long will this take? Baba had no sooner finished the first task than he was impatient to be on with the next. Everyone asked questions, everyone volunteered answers, almost everyone gave orders. The confusion was uproarious, the good humor and excitement unsurpassed. The idea of participating in a film to be shown to American television audiences could not quite compete with listening to Baba, but it had a zest of the unusual about it, and the Savasees were enjoying the situation to the hilt. The great dilemma was how to satisfy the needs of the camera for sunlight and Baba's need for shade. Decisions were made and unmade in rapid succession by everyone but the bewildered cameraman, who clearly was unprepared to cope with the exuberance of 250 men who had spent 3 full days in the presence of their master. 2 trials were lost in a babel of confusion and misunderstanding, but the 3rd trial went off without a hitch. For good luck, there was a 4th and a 5th, all from slightly different angles. Then Baba held up his hand to signal that the filming was at an end. His hands gestured quickly, and a smile of mixed amusement and embarrassment broke out on Erich's features as he said, not too loudly, Baba says that the next time Don says something will take 10 minutes, Baba will know he means 30 minutes. It was 2:30 in the afternoon, the same great day on which the feet of the poor had been washed and the television film made. The lively one and the quiet one were up on their beds having their usual after-lunch nap. The energetic snores of the former could be heard wafting out the open windows, sandwiching themselves in between the low drones and soft clanks and thuds, indigenous to the country on a quiet afternoon. Down at the bottom of the hill and across the railroad tracks where the Salvas buildings were located, A low mutter of activity began to break forth. It grew in intensity, and suddenly the clear, brief honks of the blue Chevrolet could be heard approaching the hill. The busy one sprang from his bed with a full blown snore still hanging in the air and shook the quiet one. On your feet, Baba's coming. And out the door and down the steps he raced. In a moment, he was back. Forgot my hat. Come along now. Mustn't be late. And out the door he clattered again. Already the car was coming in the gate, and Penta and Pandu and Sawak were flying about the yard bent on purposes known only to God. Erich addressed himself to the two sleepy-eyed ones. Baba wants you to witness the placing of Mildred Kyle's ashes. Dawn, you have met Mildred Kyle, and when you go back to America, you must tell them that you have seen Baba place her ashes near his tomb. A marble marker will be made later to put over them. Baba has not allowed any of the Savasis to come up the hill until the ashes have been placed. But after that, they will come and he will show them the grounds and the buildings here and through his tomb. Without words, the small group went out of the yard to the edge of the hill where a squarish, domed white building and an assortment of graves were located. The white building was Baba's tomb, now ready for some years. Around it were buried a collection of well-loved and faithful old followers, as well as several dogs who had burrowed deeply into the lives of all. At the edge of the modest little row of graves, a small stone crypt had been prepared in the ground. One of the mandali lifted a large stone slab from the opening, and Baba slowly lowered a small cloth pouch into it. Baba stood thoughtfully under the umbrella and looked long at the modest remnants of a great and saintly woman. What was he thinking? What was he feeling? Was she perhaps happier at that moment than she had ever been while she lived and breathed in that fragile puff of ashes? What had her life really been behind that unassuming exterior? How often had she wished she might break through the impenetrable wall of the otherness of human beings to find the real self and the simple warmth of oneself in another? Had she perhaps accomplished it? Was she perhaps even now buried more securely in the heart of the one who watched so pensively than those ashes would ever be in the security of the stone and earth that surrounded them? Baba twitched a hand, then straightened up soundlessly, and the rock slab was placed over the small opening. Mildred Kyle's body had come to rest. The first of the main body of Savasis were entering the front gate of the compound. In a few moments, all but a few stragglers were inside. Baba and his small group returned to the compound, and he began to lead the Savasis around the central building. This was of wood and plaster, built high off the ground atop a massive sloped stone foundation, about 8 feet high. Baba explained that the stone foundation had originally been a water reservoir for a British troop encampment. The troops had subsequently been moved, and so the reservoir had fallen into disuse. In about 1922, the property had been acquired for Baba's work, and the Mandalay had constructed the present two-room dormitory atop the old reservoir in 1938. The bottom had earlier been pierced by 2 doors, one leading into what was now a storeroom, the other into a simple bedroom. The group then walked to the rear of the structure where a tin-roofed, open-sided lean-to was attached to the old reservoir. Here a dirt floor had been constructed of a mixture of water, cow dung, and clay, beat firmly into place and kept slightly moist. The result was a very serviceable, odorless floor. The cow dung, rather than presenting a sanitation problem, was said to have germicidal properties. In this open lean-to were a dining table, highboy, and chairs. Here, the lively one and the quiet one were served their meals of specially Europeanized food. Baba's younger brother Adi and his wife Franey spent their days here, supervising the guest household, eating their meals with the two Occidentals and making certain that their least wishes were anticipated. At night, the husband and wife returned to their home in nearby Ahmednagar. As the throng of curious Savasis crowded into the sheltered area, Erich asked them to sit down while Baba sat back in a jackknife canvas lawn chair. He was about to start his gestures when he caught himself in midair and stared curiously at the hard-packed earth floor. Concern was immediately apparent on his face. For several moments, he kept up a running stream of questions and answers with Erich, Adi, and Sawak, his concern being that someone would catch cold sitting on the damp ground. Then Erich motioned for everyone to stand up, and the party transferred in toto up the stairs and into one of the two dormitory rooms atop the old reservoir. A cool afternoon breeze was blowing through the many windows, from which the shutters had been flung back, and the flagstone floor was cool to the touch of hand and haunch. Here Baba was satisfied, and all faced him attentively to hear what he had to say. Marianne, could you unmute and continue? Marianne, could you unmute and continue?
You said my name. I didn't hear my name. The 5 greatest thieves in the world, he began, are the 5 living perfect masters of their time. They often steal the hearts of people, and periodically they also steal me and bring me down amongst you. Again and again, I must become what I am. And each time this is due to the 5 perfect masters. Wherever I may be, at whatever time, it will always be due to those 5 60. Something's missing.
No, it was 5 period.
Oh, it was 5. Oh, to those 5. Oh, okay. Yes, there is a
5.
period. Thank you. So wherever I may be, at whatever time, it will always be to those 5. Okay. I never come of my own wish. It is always the 5 perfect masters who bring me down in each avataric period. Those 5 hold the key to all of creation, which contains a number of universes. I have explained in detail in God Speaks how God becomes man as the avatar, Buddha, Christ, Rasul, and men become God as perfect masters, Sadgurus, Kutubs. And there's a footnote. It's referring to pages 143 to 144. Let's see. It is because of the five perfect masters that I appear here before you. They fetch me down, and I experience myself as everything and tell you that I am everything. So footnote. This statement, although startling, rests upon or falls through a very brief line of reasoning. God is everything. Therefore, one who is God, either through descent as the God-man, avatar, or as a man-God, perfect master, must experience himself as everything in God. The burden of proof would then shift to whether Meher Baba were one with God, rather than whether he found himself to be everything. The state of God realization cannot be described. It can only be known to those who achieve that supreme experience of the conscious state of God. It is beyond the domain of mind, which persists only through the sixth plane of spiritual consciousness. At that stage, God is seen through the mind as being everywhere, all the time. But that is not the supreme experience, as the seer and the seen still remain two. The five perfect masters are the five persons of their age who not only become God, but after achieving God realization, also come down to the ordinary, normal consciousness of man. Thus, they possess simultaneously God consciousness plus mental, subtle, and gross consciousness. The world is never without the five men God. In spite of appearing as five different men, they are and always remain one God, as each one has exactly the same supreme experience of God consciousness. Nevertheless, in external relations with the world, each shows a different personality with his own characteristic traits, tastes, nature, habits, and ways of dealing with people. For example, both Sai Baba and Babajan were very fond of, finish the sentence, of hearing Qawwalis, Sufi songs, and Upasani Maharaj had no taste for them, although he was equally capable of appreciating devotional music. And there's two references. Sai Baba died October 15, 1918, revered in the Deccan as one of the greatest saints of his age and the spiritual teacher of Upasani Maharaj. Next is Babajan died in Pune, September 29, 1931, at the reputed age of 133. It was she, one of the greatest Sufi saints, who gave Meher Baba God realization when he was 20. Perfect masters are not necessarily recognized as such in the world. They too often meet with opposition and have to share persecution from the masses born of ignorance. However, in general, they meet comparatively little opposition, particularly when their function as masters remains more or less unknown. But the avatar, who is God incarnate, must always face the headache of severe opposition. It occurs in every avataric yuga, cycle of divine manifestation. Zoroaster, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, all had to face it. The same picture is before my eyes today. All the 5 Sadgurus, perfect masters, put together mean Baba. I have come so that you can escape from the cage of Maya and experience, know me in your lifetime. And there's a reference. Upasni Maharaj, born May 15, 1870, died December 24, 1941, a renowned Hindu saint who brought Meher Baba back to gross consciousness after Babajan had given him God consciousness. For more details, see Appendix 2. And the next reference is Part 3 consists of a detailed discussion of Meher Baba's claim to avatarhood. Okay. Let's see. Well, all the 5 Sadgurus, perfect masters, put together mean Baba. I have come so that you can escape from the cage of Maya and experience know me in your lifetime. Since the very beginning of the illusion of creation, Maya, which makes illusion appear as reality, has been hanging around my neck in all of you. That is why I must come as the avatar again and again. That is why I also came back from my new life, so that you might realize that all else, beauty, money, position, worlds, universes, is as valueless as a zero in comparison with God, who alone is worth seeing and becoming. And the references are this very curious allusion is another direct outgrowth of Baba's frequent statement that he experiences himself as everyone and everything. Therefore, the albatross around another's neck is, in Baba's experience, literally around Baba's own neck. In the next reference, in 1950 to 51, Baba led a small band of his followers about India in what he termed the new life. The student of Baba's life must be content to leave this phase in the realm of speculation until someone undertakes the task of researching and describing it. Those who live for me and my work contact me gradually, become intimately connected with me, dedicate their all to me, and become my dependents. From time to time, individually or collectively, with me or in accordance with my instructions, they carry out various activities connected with my work. There are a number among them who must necessarily carry out my detailed instructions daily and continuously, living as and where I want them to live. For example, at different times in the past, there have been various institutions here at Meherabad. There have been a hospital, dispensaries, schools, shelters for the poor, and separate ashrams for boys, men, women, the mad, and the musts. All were run free and were open to public, irrespective of their caste, creed, or class. There's a footnote. A detailed description of these projects is given in Appendix 2. I make the best use of money when I have it and dissolve everything when I have none. Gifts of love I accept with love, and I disperse them with love. I maintain no institutions on a permanent basis, such as those run elsewhere by self-perpetuating organizations. Every heart that loves me continues, regardless of the presence or absence of institutions, to remain my ashram for my work. Similar processes are repeated in every avataric period, and thus matters proceed age after age. Among those who are very dear to me, there are those whose dependency increases day by day. Eventually, they become dependent on me for everything. When I first set foot in Meherabad over 32 years ago, I had nothing. But in the course of my subsequent activities here and elsewhere, over 1 crore, 10 million, of rupees must have been spent for my work. Today I have nothing. I give no value to money for the sake of money. When I talk of money, I come down to your level and say things from that level. But I repeat that I am not in the least concerned with money. I am told that one of you has inquired of Pendu today whether money could be offered to me. This reminds me of the attitude towards money of Sai Baba, one of the 5 perfect masters. I'll continue. When I talk of money, I come down to your level and say things from that level, but I repeat that I am not in the least concerned with money. I am told that one of you has inquired of Pendu today whether money could be offered to me. This reminds me of the attitude towards money of Sai Baba, one of the 5 perfect masters. Sai Baba had exceptionally lustrous eyes and a wonderful personality. He was fond of smoking a chilam, an earthen pipe, and used to cough and spit freely in the presence of his visitors. He always asked point blank for money of all those who visited him. In some cases, he would ask the same person for money again and again until the visitor was stripped clean, with no money left, even for his return journey. However, Sai Baba would keep no money and used to give it away. Bhajans and qawwalis were often sung before him by Hindus and Muslims who revered him alike, but you will never be able to understand thoroughly how great Sai Baba was. He was the very personification of perfection. If you knew him as I know him, you would call him the master of creation. During his lifetime, there were few who really loved him. And there were many who could not understand how one who constantly grabbed money from visitors could be a saint. But now you find Sai Mandirs, temples, Sai matchboxes, Sai this and Sai that, mostly made by the same worldly-minded people who mocked Sai Baba during his lifetime. Here in my presence, you feel like dozing now, but after I drop the body, like Sai Baba, people will begin to understand my divinity. During the 3 years that Upasni Maharaj stayed in Khandoba's temple at Shirdi, he lived on water alone under orders from Sai Baba. And there's a footnote. See Appendix 2 for details. Shirdi is a village in the district of Ahmednagar. And during the 3 years that Upasni Maharaj stayed in Khandoba's temple at Shirdi, he lived on water alone under orders from Sai Baba. Maharaj was the only one there who knew who Sai Baba really was. Maharaj himself was so great that if his grace were to descend on a particle of dust, it would be transformed into God. But in contrast to Sai Baba, Maharaj for many years chased away those who offered him money. In later years, however, he began to accept what people offered out of their love for him. That is how the present Upasninagar, with its temples, residential quarters, etc., has come into being and is maintained. And there's a note. Presided over by Maharaj, leading disciple, Godavari Mai. See page 25. Babajan, whom I often called the emperor, was really the emperor of emperors. She lived most of the time under a neem tree in the cantonment area of Pune, staying there during all seasons, regardless of sun, rain, or cold. Although wrinkled with age, she remained very energetic to the last, always looking bright and usually cheerful. She had almost no wants, and there was no question of money in her life, which was that of a real fakir, poorest of the poor. Among those who were deeply devoted to her was a large number of Pathan and Baluchi soldiers who would often flock around her seat under the tree. But then in a mood of Jalal, divine majesty, she would rise from her seat with a stick in her hand. The strongest men in the group would run away. It was Babajan who caused me in less than the flash of a second to experience my most original state of being the Ancient One, Avatar. Narayan Maharaj had absolutely no physical personality. And there's a footnote. Born approximately 1855, died September 3, 1945, the fourth of the 5 perfect masters of Baba's youth. He was short-statured like Ustaji, but more lean. He always, and there's another footnote referring. One of Upasni Maharaj's disciples, whom Upasni Maharaj told to follow Meher Baba. Ustaji. He was short-statured like Ustaji, but more lean. He always dressed in fine clothes and used to have a diamond ring flashing on one finger. He lived in grand style in Kedgaon, living a life of routine arti puja, ceremonial worship. He never asked for money directly, but indirectly, he used to impress this point upon his visitors and devotees. Tajuddin Baba of Nagpur was completely indifferent to his immediate surroundings. There's a reference. Born January 7, 1861, died August 17, 1925, the fifth of the five perfect masters. He was Taj, the crown. You can have no idea who he was. I do know who he is. People used to crowd around him during his lifetime and still flock around his shrine by the thousands. All five of these perfect masters have brought me down, and all that I have become is due to these five. I am made of all the attributes of all five of these masters, and my avataric state comprises the five states of these five Sadgurus, Kutubs. Naturally, therefore, the qualities of all five are in me. And there's a reference. It is, perfect master equal Sadguru equal Kutub. Since I began to observe silence, July 1925, I have not touched money except when I give it to the poor and to the musts. Sometimes I ask for money from those who love me. Sometimes I receive money from them unasked. At times I refuse all money offered to me, but I have never obtained money through any such thing as the miracles which the yogis occasionally perform. It is only money offered with love that I accept and disperse for my work. At this moment, Sai Baba's attribute is uppermost in me. If people are to know about me, they should know everything about me. Those who love me should continue to love me. Those who do not love me do not affect me. I am what I am, and I'll remain what I am for all time and under all circumstances. Money comes, money goes. I remain the fakir that I am. In order to carry out some important work, which I must do, I have a plan. For this, I have literally to be free to go where I like and do what I have to do for a period of 1 year, from February 15, 1956 to February 15, 1957. During this period, I wish to receive no correspondence, nor see people or give interviews. And I may not see even those who always stay near me. I have only 2 months left now to arrange affairs so as to be free from all my apparent bindings. All those who contribute whatever they can really spare towards the various provisions I choose to make for the 1 year will thereby participate with me in the work I have in mind for that year. But no one should offer money which will increase his own individual burden, mental or financial. It must be done in the spirit of a free offering of love, for love, and must be made with pleasure and without mental reservations. To enable all to share equally in the work I will do during the year, I will gladly accept even 5 rupees. Although it is true that I will regard all contributors as equal participants in my work, regardless of the amount contributed, that fact should not lead one who can easily afford 5,000 to give only 500, or one to offer only 50 who can offer 500. Those who cannot spare even a single rupee should not worry. Money has absolutely no connection with love, and love is the only thing of real value. No one could ever win godhood from me in exchange for all the money in the world. But he who loves me intensely can become God without possessing or giving me a single cent. Above all else, no one should attempt to raise funds for this project from others and then remit the total in one or several names. Each one of you is to offer me directly what you conveniently can, doing so with pleasure and without taking any burden upon yourself, as that would be a burden on me. Baba then went on to ask the assembled group for volunteers to share more actively in the work to be done during his retirement. To do this, he asked for one man from the group and promised to select one from each of the other 3 language groups yet to come to go into retirement at their homes for 21 days. These 4 individuals, he explained, should also live indoors during that entire period on water alone. Further, they were to repeat the 2 syllables, ba, ba, audibly, one on inhalation and the other on exhalation throughout the period except when dozing. Finally, each of the 4 was not to lie down to sleep, nor to sleep with his head resting on anything other than his own body during the entire period. There was a sense of crisis in the air as Baba outlined the stipulations, but the description had hardly been given when 9 of the group rose instantly to volunteer. Baba quizzed each one minutely regarding his ability to carry out the severe conditions. The aged man with thick lensed glasses and long flowing white beard, Baba gently thanked and asked to sit down. This the old man did, registering the deepest disappointment. One of those standing was an emaciated young fellow who looked as though he had just recovered from a long illness. Baba joked with him about the amount of flesh he had on his bones to carry him through the rigorous fast. Nothing Baba could say served to convince him that he was not entirely fit to qualify. Finally, Baba told him also to sit down. 2 others who had families and business responsibilities were in turn quizzed and asked to sit down, and now 5 were left standing. These certainly looked as though they could stand the test of even such an ordeal. Baba seemed undecided which one to pick from among them. As he talked with them and seemed to wrestle with his choice, he began to modify the conditions which were to be observed. First, instead of 21 days, the period was reduced to 7 from midnight February 14 to midnight February 21. Then he said that in addition to water, they could have each day either 1 cup of milk or 1 or 2 cups of tea. And they should take 1 teaspoon of a stomach powder in a glass full of water each noon. Baba then selected all 5 of the men to carry out the fast. Equal numbers were later selected from the Telugu, Hindi, and Marathi groups. When Baba completed the arrangements for the fast, a gentle-faced man, perhaps 50 years old, rose from among the group and asked permission to deliver some Sanskrit verses. Receiving permission to do so, he recited them so feelingly that apparently the stream broke the floodgates of his heart. He burst into tears, cried out, "Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai," and asked forgiveness for his sins. Baba motioned the desolate figure into his arms, embraced him warmly, stroked his shoulder and his damp cheeks tenderly, and then held him quietly to his chest. "Don't be afraid," he said. "You need not tell me any more. If I am the avatar, then I know everything, and everything will be forgiven. If I am not the avatar, what good will it do you to tell me anything? And what use would it be to ask my forgiveness?" Christ often said, "I forgive you, I forgive you." Those who loved Christ accepted his prasad, offering of forgiveness. But those who would not recognize Christ naturally could not understand him. His words were just words to them. I can forgive. I have come to forgive. Forgiveness is the highest thing for those who are forgiven. It is not a great thing to me to forgive. In fact, in reality, there is nothing to be forgiven, for there is really nothing like good and bad. You find them so, and they are there in duality due to your own bindings in duality. In the bondage of duality, there is good and there is bad. But in reality, everything but God is zero. Maya, which causes you to mistake illusion for reality, is present for you, but not for me. For me, only I am, and nothing else exists. There's a footnote. That is, only God exists. It therefore means nothing for me to forgive, and everything for you to be forgiven. Forgiveness consists in loosening the bindings of duality in Maya, which makes you feel and find the one as many. Therefore, I forgive you amounts to the loosening of your bindings. Although it takes a lot of time to build a big stack of hay, a single lighted match can burn all of it in no time at all. Similarly, regardless of the accumulated dirt and refuse of sins, divine forgiveness burns them away in no time. The Sanskrit scholar stepped gracefully back into the audience, and all rose to their feet, the afternoon now clearly being at an end. There was a hush of deep feeling, powerfully generated, which hung over the group. No one wished to break the enchantment of this momentary glimpse into the hidden workings of God and his relation to his creature, man. Without a word, everyone filed out behind Baba and the mandali and gathered around the blue car waiting at the foot of the high stone stairs. It was late. Already the sun was sinking low behind the green hills, and the cowherd children from Erangel were bringing their charges down from the rolling pasture land to the road that led through the fields of low corn and across the railroad tracks to the village. As the blue car moved slowly down the dirt road, the cowherds recognized it and with shrill cries raced across the fields to intercept it in its course. The signal of their delighted screams alerted the village. As the Savasis streamed slowly down from Meherabad on the hill, they could see the blue car inching through the crowd. Children were trying to reach a hand in through the door, and mothers with shy, black-eyed babes shoved their offspring and their own hands forward in hopes of receiving a rewarding pat. At the railroad crossing, where the car was forced to halt momentarily, a swarm of villagers milled and eddied about the vehicle, threatening to hold it up indefinitely. Finally, it made its way through the dense pack, and like a blue arrow bent on racing into the heart of the heavens, it sped into the accumulating sunset. So, shall I continue?
If you're doing good, you're doing good. Great. Do continue unless you need to rest, my dear.
No, I'm going to, one thing, be right back.
Reading very well. I'm liking it very much, Marion.
So I didn't want an interference for chapter 5, lighting the Dooney. The following morning, which began the fourth full day, the session was underway by 8 o'clock. Something of the holiday atmosphere of the first 3 days had abated, and there was more of an air of sober men at work, wrestling with a serious construction problem. The first rash of colds due to the change in climate had begun to dry up, and the regularity of nature seemed to have reasserted itself, judging by the sleep-rested faces. On this day, Baba had promised to hold individual and group interviews, followed at sunset by the lighting of the Dooney, a once-a-month ceremonial. But first, he must speak his mind on the overall problem of his work and the participation of his devoted followers in that work. He picked several people from the group to sit especially close to his great armchair. Again and again, on various occasions, he made special efforts to show special signs of attention to different members of the group. Now this one, now another. The roving finger of favor passed so indiscriminately that no sense of undue favoritism ever seemed to gnaw at the inners of the Savasis. Perhaps the matter never came up because here, for once in the world, there seemed to be a supply of warm love sufficient to satisfy all. There was a clearing of throats as people settled down into their nesting points. Baba cross-sampled the group with his usual questions on sleeping, eating, elimination, and general health. The results were either statistically sound, or else he had much on his mind, for this morning he wasted no time in his brief survey. Wherever I go, people flock about me by the hundreds and thousands. That kind of love is not what I want. Whether people worship or vilify me, I remain what I am. Whether the whole world believes in God or denies him, God always remains God. I look forward to the love which enables the individual to obey me so that he may find me and eventually become me. Therefore, I do not merely want crowds to be attracted towards me. I want really sincere souls. I do not necessarily wait for them to come to me. I often go to them. I can and do my own work. You can and should share it too. It is easy to collect crowds, and it is easy for crowds to collect. My greatness cannot be established in the crowds and through the crowds. But even a few with love can make the masses feel my greatness and keep the greatness established in their hearts. One single person who really loves me can move the whole world. There is no one here, including myself, who can so love me. If all of you became my real lovers, we would need several more worlds for all of you to work in for me. My work for you does not consist in your going around beating a big drum for me. Love needs no propaganda. You need love yourself in order to propagate love among others. To spread my love among the people, you have to make them understand me as you understand me. For that, you have to bring them to love me as you love me. And that means you have to cause them to feel my love as you feel it. The best way is to show others by your own example how much you love me. The world is too full of preachers and teachers. Never forget that I have not come to teach, and I need no preachers. In the intimate spirit of the Savas, I must be free and frank with you and tell you whatever I feel like saying. Why shout to others? Baba says God is the only reality and all else is illusion, when you yourself cannot help whispering to me about your own illusions. There are doubtless many among you here who are sincere and painstaking in your efforts to explain my message to one and all, that they should ignore illusion and awaken to reality. Yet these sincere workers do not hesitate to bring to my attention their own tales of illusory woes and worries, such as, Baba, I am short of money. My wife is not in good health. I'm about to lose my job. There is trouble in my business, and so on. Would it be truthful for one of these to tell others? Baba says, do not worry about illusory things. God knows everything and God does everything. Why preach at all what you yourself cannot put into practice? If you do not find yourself free of falsehood, envy, slander, backbiting, and hatred, and if you find in yourself lack of love and consideration for others, then instead of telling others, Baba says this and Baba says that, you had best keep quiet and not show your face to those whom you would like to win over to me. Suppose one of my followers is speaking before a gathering and trying to tell them that Baba is reality and all else is illusion. Suppose that just then a telegram is given to him which tells of a bus accident in which all of his family have been killed. If in spite of the tragedy and pain of what has happened, he continues to speak with greater conviction, then he has achieved real authority to speak about me and my teachings. You win the right to tell others what you first accept in letter and spirit for yourself. Show outwardly only what you have won inwardly. There is no doubt, for example, that I am the avatar, the ancient one. But how do you know that I am he? You say so mainly because I say so. I say so based on my own living experience of being that. But for you, it is just a belief until you become me. Suppose your belief is wrong. What I want to impress upon you is this. Never give a twist to what you feel deep down in your own hearts. If you feel I am the avatar, say openly, Baba is the avatar. If you feel I am a fraud, do not hesitate to say, Baba is a fraud. I remain unaffected by praise or abuse. If you speak what you feel to be true, you have the force of truth to make others accept truth. Honest differences between workers laboring in a common cause are signs of the vitality of the work. But a spirit of discipline is also essential in all creative activities of life. How can people work jointly without discipline? And on the other hand, where would there be scope for self-control and discipline if there were no differences between workers? Your eyes, ears, nose, and mouth are placed in different positions to serve varying purposes. They also appear different in size and shape, and yet all are equally yours. Besides serving specific direct purposes, all your organs are also complementary to each other and, in this respect, equally valuable to you. There is no question of one organ competing with another for supremacy of position or service to the body. Each serves in its individual capacity, and all harmonize in the smooth functioning of the whole body. Differences between workers who toil in the cause of love and truth can either accentuate or mutilate them for other persons, and for the workers as well. Therefore, differences must be properly harmonized and fairly adjusted with the aid of discipline, which is more to be lived sincerely within oneself than enforced upon others. But neither differences nor discipline should ever be raised above love and truth. They should be sacrificed rather than be allowed to mar or cloud the main object. A body without a soul is best buried, burned, or disposed of as quickly as possible. No one would like to die to save one's eyes or ears. Your love for me should have free expression in the mode of form best suited to you, in the mode or form best suited to you. It should shine through you to others, awakening their hearts to receive this divine gift. Gatherings and meetings in my name should be a channel for the expression of my love, and to give them any other importance is to misunderstand my cause. Organizations may be necessary for carrying out work of a routine nature, but if I am the avatar, I need no such things for my own work. Although I would not be worth loving if I were not aware of someone's unexpressed love for me, why should anyone who wishes to express it be compelled to do so through some office or organization? My office should be the heart of everyone who loves me. The heart of each should be my shrine, and my lover the priest of that temple of love. Such a temple comes first, and the priest afterwards. A cart placed before the horse can serve no purpose. Love and the heart which has love are of greater importance than questions of the position or prestige of those who choose to take up my work. A heavy railway train with two engines pulling it in the same direction is quickly moved up a steep grade. But a few cars pulled by two engines straining in opposite directions cannot make progress even on level ground. Forget the past and make the most of the present. Keep your own hearts clean. Learn to love each other first before you tell others about my love for one and all. Give love, receive love, gather love. Everything else is dissolved eventually in the truth of divine love. Let your own life of love for Baba be the message of Baba's love for one and all. After this, Baba retired to the small building, which he used so often for his private business or to rest for a few moments. Soon individuals, and sometimes small groups, were called in to have their interviews. From one conference to the next, no one knew what took place with the preceding or succeeding persons. The interviews went on all day, with a short break for lunch. As the sun began to sink lower in the hot afternoon sky, Baba and the Mandali came into the hall. With a few loud cries to round up the Savasis, the group gathered once again in the unusually warm room. Baba explained to them that they were all very lucky to be there at that time, as it was the day of the month on which they regularly lit the Duni fire. This was a small ceremonial fire used in a variety of forms in several religions, which was lit in a small brazier just at sunset. Baba adapted the ceremony to his own ends by suggesting that each of the Savasis embody in a small stick of wood one personal attachment or characteristic which he was willing to give up, and then cast the stick into the Duni fire. The sun seemed to set unusually fast that evening, for as the fire was lit on the edge of the shelter where the feet of the poor had been washed, the figures of Baba and the Mandali grew into a hazy, unreal backdrop for the tiny dancing flames. This was the first time Baba had been seen at night, and perhaps that added to the ripe air of mystery which laced the dusty heat of the gathering night. The Savasis formed into a long, sinuous line leading to the concrete floor on which Baba and the Duni fire sat. Erich handed each man a small splint of wood. Baba patted or embraced the man, and then the tiny faggot was tossed into the fire. It was quite simple. The quiet one, who was almost 2/3 of the way down the line, wondered why many of the Mandali were slipping into the queue to participate in the guileless ceremony. Usually, one sensed they had been through these things so many times with Baba that there was little reason for there was little reason for repetition. The quiet one thought over his personal store of stinky traits, almost tempted to single out the most attractively disgusting one of all, but decided to live with that one a while longer. Instead, he picked the runner-up, his inordinate sensitivity to criticism. This he determined playfully to embody symbolically in the wood chip. He expected no earth-shaking reaction and participated in the ceremony more on the basis of when in Rome, etc. Well, he learned he should have taken his tip from the unusual actions of the Mandali, which would have hinted that something of unusual value was occurring. But no, the sheep calmly walked down the ramp to his slaughter. As Erich handed him the wood chip, a brief smile of recognition flashed between the two. He moved on 2 steps to find himself enfolded with unusual tenderness in Baba's embrace. And then he turned around and tossed the stick into the fire. It was done, and he forgot about it as he stumbled on home. But God and Baba had not. The smoke from that one tiny bit of wood streaked halfway around the world. And when the quiet one arrived home a week later, all hell had broken loose. Everyone was mad at him for everything he had ever done, and for a few things he hadn't done as well. After several days of attempting to calm people down and trying to reconstruct his shattered universe, he suddenly recalled the Duni fire. What a sucker he had been. Or stop, had he? If the stick tossed into the fire had precipitated all this, then perhaps that loving embrace by Baba held the antidote. For weeks, as the kettle boiled and sputtered, he thought of the possible mechanics of this unusual thing that he had apparently brought on himself. Through it all, however, the warm support given at the time it began kept up his nerve. As affairs gradually calmed down again, he wiped the mental perspiration from his brow and wondered how many other unsuspecting souls had walked full tilt into a similar blockbuster. Erich, next time, whittle the sticks just a little bit smaller. The Dooney fire died down, and the blue car sped back through Abednagar to Pimpalgaon, and the noise of the night preparations of the Savasis began to soak into the desert of stillness of the hot Indian twilight. Hardly a breath of air moved through the leaves and through the corn stalks and through the fingers hanging limply over the edges of mattresses. A long day of heavy work lay behind, and the night was heavy with the static of it.
So here's a good place to pick up next time.
Wow.
Very nice. I didn't realize I have never read